Welcome to the Soulfire Podcast, where every day we talk about real life, real shit, real raw. On this show, you can expect us to dive deep into topics like marriage, parenting, money, business, feeling like you want to give up, fighting for yourself, just straight soul healing. This podcast is all about life. Hey there, it's Power Coach Alicia here, your source of fun, funny, exciting, entertaining, and educational life coaching, transformational speaking, and soul healing. We're talking about setting your soul on fire. I specialize in helping women put themselves first without feeling guilty, getting out of their own way, and finding themselves again. No fluff, no hand-holding, no bullshit here, just love, light, and peace as we journey through this thing called life. There's an app called Lasting, okay? Go to your app store, Google Play Store. Hopefully it's on Android. I don't fucking know, but it's called Lasting. And in this app, it's literally like marriage counseling and communication. Like, it's really fucking cool. But in this app, they talk about emotional calls, and that's why I'm sharing this with you. The app with you is because of this. And the emotional calls is when your partner or your friend, it could be your mom, your brother, it really doesn't matter. People have emotional calls everywhere. Like, I have emotional calls in my friendship. When I say I can't handle this, I'm like struggling with this, like this is eating me alive and I can't be in this environment because of the way that it feels, that's an emotional call. And I could be saying that to a friend. The Lasting app is for relationship counseling though. So it's more for like marriages, couples, significant other, whatever. But an emotional call is when somebody says something that they need, how they're feeling, what they want. That is the moment that they're giving you the opportunity to answer that call. I cannot tell you how oblivious we are to people's emotional calls. What I find is when someone has an emotional call, someone else hijacks that with, yeah, I felt like that too. Yeah, I've had a similar situation like that happen to me too. Yeah, I've experienced that as well. Emotional calls at the front end is not time for relatability. It's not. The very first thing you want to do when someone gives an emotional call is validate and reiterate what you heard. It sounds like you're having a really hard time with that. I can feel in your emotion how deep that is for you. And I hear you saying that you're struggling being in these environments because you're feeling like shit and you're feeling like you're the big asshole and you're feeling like you don't matter. And you're sharing this with me because you would like some help with that. Is that correct? Or you're sharing this with me because you want to know how you want me to know how you feel so we can work on this together. Is that correct? Yes. Right? The person says yes. And then you say, and you could say something along those lines, right? It doesn't matter whatever it is. You be genuine. But first meet emotional call with validation and re-saying it back to them. Okay? That's most important. Once you validate and you re-say it back to them and they say yes, like that you heard, then you can meet them with experience. I have felt like that before. There was a situation with this and that, and here's what I did. Do not give a fucking example of you experiencing it, but you did nothing about it. That doesn't help anybody. Give an example, give an experience, give an advice that, you've seen someone take it, something you've experienced, there was a resolution to it, right? That's when you can share that, is after you reiterate what they said back to them and they say yes, they feel seen, heard, and understood. Once they feel seen, heard, and understood, that next step is maybe that connection point of if you've experienced something similar and then what you did to rectify that, to feel better, to have there be that compromise, that common ground. And then from there, you might ask them some questions like, so what do you feel like you need? What do you feel like is missing? Why are you feeling that way? Like, what's happened that has made you feel that way? Is there anything that I can do to help you not feel that way? Is there anything that I can do to help you feel like you're loved in these situations? Da, 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 right? I've talked in a previous podcast episode about managing someone else's emotions. When you say, is there anything I can do to help you? Is there anything that I can do so that you don't end up feeling that way? It's still up to the person to allow that. You still cannot manage their emotions. They have got to do their own managing, but you can take action that helps that, right? You can help aid them in their journey to allowing themselves to feel better. If you learn this and you take what I'm saying here, it will change everything. It will change everything. Because we literally have so many emotional calls every single day that are hijacked by people who are broken. That's how I'm going to say it. Who are very broken beings. So it gets hijacked, or it's hijacked by people who have a need to feel important in every conversation and everywhere they go. Or it's hijacked by people who are victims and live in victimhood. Or it's hijacked by people who are so self-absorbed in their own life, their own feelings, and what's going on in their own mind that they share that. Or it's blatantly disregarded because they're not actually paying attention to you. There are so many emotional calls that you give. There's so many emotional calls that they give. If you do the one thing and you pay attention to other people's emotional calls and you follow that process of validation, reiterating what they said to get confirmation that you've got it right, then you connect with them on experience and what you've been through and what you did about it and how you got through it. Then you go into questions and even deeper connection and understanding and asking what you can do and how you can help, or is there anything you can do for them, or all of those things that I shared. That person will feel so fucking good with you that it will change the nature of the relationship and bring it to a level that you could have never imagined. The friendship will be deeper and more connected, more loving, more soul leveled. The relationship with parents or siblings or partners will just be so fucking unbelievable, especially with the significant other partnership marriage. It will make kissing so fucking phenomenal and feel amazing. It'll make sex so fucking phenomenal and feel amazing. The intimacy, it'll make it so amazing because you feel seen, heard, and understood. Hey, are you loving this? To get even more soul fire, soul healing products, and to download the free gifts that I have for you, go to soulfirepodcast.com. Again, that's soulfirepodcast.com. Or they feel seen, heard, and understood. It changes the nature of the relationships and it takes them to a depth that you could have never imagined because you heard their emotional call or calls and you showed up for them. That's what I'm telling you. When you are self-aware, you also know when you give an emotional call. So you can say, hey, that was an emotional call. They can go, oh, no shit. Like sometimes that has to happen when you're at the beginning of people understanding what your emotional calls are and you're understanding what theirs are. Like, that was an emotional call. Oh, okay. I hear you saying that you're feeling this way. And I completely understand where you're coming from, and that you're feeling like that. And what I hear you saying is that right? Yes. Well, okay, good. I'm glad that we're on the same page. There was a time where blah, 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 and I felt a lot like you're feeling, and it sucked. And I felt disregarded. I felt disrespected. I felt like nobody actually fucking cared. And instead of just internalizing it all and dealing with it all on my own, I made it very known that the way that things were and the environments that I was in and the way that I was feeling, I wasn't going to accept that anymore, and that things needed to change if this was going to continue, if we were going to continue with any sort of relationship, friendship, whatever, that this needed to change because I hate feeling this way. So what do you feel like you need in order to feel better? It's just so beautiful when you can communicate in energies like that, when you can connect with energy like that, when you can feel like you matter at a level that is so much higher than, oh, I get that. Yeah, I could see how you would feel that way. Like, it's just the stop motion of like, okay, now what, right? It's hard though, because we live in a very stimulated world and everything's moving, so fast, and everything is about speed and ease of use and instant gratification, that emotional calls are missed because generally they're subtle in the world of noise. And because they're so subtle in the world of noise, you actually have to be paying attention. You've got to be paying attention to yourself when you give emotional calls, as well as other people, because you've got to train people to see your emotional calls, because we live in such a fast fucking paced, instant gratification, being stimulated everywhere sort of world. So if you sit down with people who have a significant role in your life and you explain this emotional calls thing and how you want to be better there and present for them when they're going through stuff, and you would love that in return as well, you can see that evolving, right? And you can have a conversation that says, hey, if you ever do an emotional call and I miss it, I'd really appreciate if you say, hey, that was an emotional call, right? And what's really good about it, especially if you can remember this, is do it lighthearted. That was an emotional call. And they're like, oh, boom, they're going to be right there. And then it's going to shift the nature of the energy. We've already talked about that. That means you're present. We're going to talk through this. We're going to help each other, or you're going to help me, whatever it is. We're going to get to a common ground with this. There's going to be completeness there. We already know what that means. And so when you say that, it's like, boom, it all of a sudden will trigger presentness. And that's, really the whole point of that, because we just live in this world where we're missing the emotional depth of what people want, what people need, and what they're calling out for, because we're so distracted by so many other things. So I wanted to share that with you because I felt like that will help in connection of your significant relationships. It seriously will. The challenge in any relationship is reciprocation. Are you just going to be the one paying attention to their emotional calls, or is the relationship important enough to the other person or people that they're going to do the same thing for you? And then that brings you into a level of analyzing your relationships and your close people in your tribe and making a decision of whether or not you want them in your life if they aren't going to be paying attention to you, right? If they don't care to do the work for you to have a closer relationship. Like if somebody isn't willing to do the work for us to have a closer relationship, a more healthy relationship, a depth of that relationship, a deeper understanding of each other, and they have a significant role in my life, that's the moment that I am going to remove them from a significant role and put them in a very less significant role, because I don't want people in significant roles in my life that don't pay attention to me, that don't care to grow with me, and vice versa, that I'm going to pour into them and pay attention to them and I care to grow with them, but they don't want to give that to me. No, we've gotten to this point where we have these relationships where, I don't know, somewhere along the line it was normalized that there's a good chance you're going to be in a relationship and you're always going to be the one giving extra and more than everyone, the other person or everyone else. That's just the nature of the beast. Everybody has their own things going on. Everybody's going through their own shit. Everybody's dealing with their own life. Everybody is at different stages. So you're more than likely going to be the one always giving more because of where you're at in your journey. And I think that that's fucking asinine. And when I say more, it is definitely relative, right? I believe that in most relationships, I show up more and, dare I say, better than most people do on the flip side in what they give to me. I'm not expecting people to show up the way that I do. I'm expecting them to show up for me the way that they can, the way that they are willing, and the way that they, want to for the growth of that relationship. And if they don't have the capacity to do that, with as much respect as I have for that, I still will distance myself from them. I don't want to be in a relationship, a significant relationship of any amounts with someone who never has the capacity to show up for me. If you don't have the capacity to show up for me, I will move you into a much less significant role and just, be that like whole acquaintance check in, how you doing, sort of thing. And I won't have you there as that like connected ride or die, like we're doing this fucking shit together. That's okay. But I'm not going to be close to somebody that has no capacity for me and just be there. Because those types of people who don't have capacity, they take actions that hurt the people who want to feel important to them. So when are you giving emotional calls? Pay attention to what these emotional calls are, how they come up. What are you saying so that you can tell somebody, hey, that was an emotional call. Because if you don't know what's an emotional call for you, then it's going to be hard for you to teach somebody to recognize that in you, right? In the same breath, it's easy to tell what an emotional call is if you're paying attention to the person. They will say things that you can hear that comes from a place of emotion and they need that love and support. So like, here's an example. Somebody says, oh, I've never told anybody this. And then they tell you, that's an example of an emotional call. They need validation that they're not crazy or they're not wrong for thinking or feeling that way, or there's not something wrong with them, because that is a thought process. Right? That is literally an emotional call. I have had a shitty fucking day and I'm really struggling. That's an emotional call. I have no fucks left to give and I'm on the edge. That's an emotional call. I feel exhausted and like anything's going to set me off. That is an emotional call. When you talk to me like that, it infuriates me. That's an emotional call. This happened today and it really just like, it took me back. It caught me off guard. That's an emotional call. Are you upset with me or something? Because it seems like I did something wrong. That's an emotional call. If you pay attention, you will hear what emotional calls are, and you'll be able to respond to them in a way that makes that person feel seen, heard, and understood. And it's so fucking powerful, like I said, for the depth of connection in that relationship. And it's also really powerful for you to realize that you have a tribe of people or a person that is too close to you that you need to create distance from because they don't want to do the work to really care about that. And that's okay. I say people with significant roles in your life should be limited. You should have a limited amount of people with significant roles in your life, because most people don't have the capacity to really care or do or be or show up for anybody else but themselves. Or those people who live under their roof that they deem as most important to them. So when it's like that, it feels like shit that you don't matter as much. That's because of your investment in that relationship and their investment in that relationship aren't even kind of on the same wavelength. If you do this and you learn this and you step into the power of recognizing your emotional calls and definitely recognizing theirs and following that process, your entire life will change. Your relationship with yourself will change, and your relationship with other people will change. Remember this sacred truth. Say yes to yourself, for within you lies infinite worth. Let your heart be your compass, guiding you on a path of self-discovery and liberation. Grant yourself the grace to stumble and rise, for it is in our imperfections that we find our strength. Embrace the dance of progress, where each step forward fuels the fire within you. And with massive power and deep soul conviction, let this be your anthem, your unwavering declaration. I choose me. I'm Power Coach Alicia, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Soul Fire podcast. You being here means the world to me, and I'm grateful for the time that you've dedicated to be here. And by consistently showing up, I firmly believe that you will transform your life. I'm so grateful that you subscribed and you continue to share with others, spreading my message far and wide, because together we can reach my mission of transforming the lives of 1 million souls on their healing journey. Now, to provide you even more support on your soul healing journey and address any questions you may have, I would like to invite you to join our soul healing community. Simply visit community.thesoulhealingzone.com. Again, that's community.thesoulhealingzone.com, where you can connect with like-minded women, share your top takeaways, discuss what resonated with your soul, and express your absolute favorite moments from this episode. I can't wait to read them. I'm so freaking excited to create more empowering episodes and continue supporting you. I am sending you so much love, light, and peace as we journey through this thing called life.